Welcome to this meeting of the Central Hawke's Bay District Council Transport Committee. To start the morning with a karakia, please. Whakataka taho ki te uru, whakataka taho ki te tonga. Kia mā kina kina ki uta, kia mā tara tara ki tā. Ki ana te atatora, e te u, te huka, te hauru, te tēnei. Thank you, welcome all. First up, apologies, we have none this morning. Declarations of conflicts of interest from around the table, if any. Standing orders, would someone like to move that the following standing orders are suspended for the duration of the meeting? That's 21.2 time limits on speakers, 21.5 members may speak only once, and 21.6 limits on the number of speakers. And that we choose option C. Be used for the meeting. Standing orders recommended to be suspended to enable members to engage in discussion in a free and frank manner. Would somebody like to move that, please? Councillor Witchman, Councillor Deputy Mayor Annand. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. On to the confirmation of minutes from our meeting on the 19th of September 2024. Any questions or comments related to the minutes? And I have a mover and a seconder that be confirmed as true and correct, please. Councillor Minahan and Councillor Greer. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Thank you. Scrolling down. So the first report today, proposed local roading hierarchy updates. Mr. Navagobani.
Yeah.
And Mr. McKinley, welcome.
Firstly, apologies from Ruben. Ruben's off sick today. He was meant to be here presenting. So it's I'm sure and I today. So firstly, the road hierarchy paper. So we take the paper as read. It follows on from the workshop that we did last month on road hierarchy. The road hierarchy approach is something that's adopted nationally. It's common actually internationally to do this. It ultimately determines the various levels of service across the network and how the dollars are distributed across the network. So really important foundational piece of work. You'll see that in the paper, there's a reference to the ONRC and also the ONF. Two kind of frameworks that are both in existence, and the ONRC lends itself very much to maintenance activities, and that's the one that kind of that we're using. It also lends itself to our network as well, being a rural network. The ONF lends itself probably more to a city environment where you've got various places, and the transport network is doing much more than moving trucks and cars around. You've got multimodal forms of transport across the network. So, as I said, this along with the next paper is foundational in terms of moving forward and retendering our maintenance operations contracts, as it will determine, how our contractors manage the network, working with our teams. Sean, any other comments on top of what I've already said? No. Okay, so it's over to questions.
Any questions for Mr. Gumberg? Councillor Minahan.
Yes, thank you, Chair. How frequently is the road hierarchy system reviewed or updated?
It's through you, Madam Chair. The ONRC, when it first came out, was first of its kind in the world. New Zealand was leading the world. It has been refined into the ONF, which is the one that made the framework. I don't know of any attempt further to refine it or change it. First and say 10 years, it's worked. And now for the big cities, as Mr. Kinley says, the ONF offers a place function. So there's no intent to further refine it or get rid of it.
Into that, someone?
Yes, thank you. Just something else I was thinking about to ensure local needs are met. You do any local community engagement? When they set this up, who proposes what helps?
So through you, Madam Chair. This was set up as an initiative after a ministerial decision that we needed to get more value and they needed to compare those across the country. So this was a central government decision. How it was set up was committees with local authority involvement. And I was part of REG at the time, so yes, we had some input. Don't see that that's going to change either, but NZTAR with REG coming out with things that there's a lot of consultation with them.
We're just the road efficiency group.
Yeah.
That's all I know. Somebody else had their hand up, was it Councillor Griffin? Your Worship?
Thank you. Thanks for this, and we haven't really looked at this in much detail for quite some time. So the process we've been through for the last couple of weeks has been really good. But just to clarify, when you talk about this, classification is then about how you split the funding up about how work occurs. Like this is the evidence basis of the traffic volumes for which these roads are there. But does that completely describe the level of service or the way that we would approach how we do work on these roads, or is there other ways that we do that?
Through you, Madam Chair, the next paper with the prioritization, there's all of those categories that are taken into consideration. So a safety issue on Rongo Road is a higher priority, higher because of this classification, gets attention quicker than a safety issue on a road like the Brow Road. Sorry, Councillor, but.
Okay. So that means that even though we've got, if you compare a couple of roads that are in the orange category, because that's, we've got a lot of the orange ones, which is the low, whatever it's called. And then you've got to compare between the two. So if you go to one that's connecting, it's a really important community resilience route, like out at Clearanch Road, for instance, which connects the bottom end of Clearanch to Mangakuri, and it changes orange down there. But you've also then got the little roads that go up into the Ruahinis are also orange. Clearly the one else at Mangakuri is a really important community resilience route. So even though they're both orange, we apply prioritisation within that to ensure that we can get that community resilience piece.
Through you, Madam Chair. That would be further refined through the actual traffic volume.
Okay, cool.
I think to you, Madam Chair, as well, the prioritisation paper as well covers the resilience, the way we prioritise from a resilience recovery perspective, because it's slightly different. Because if we were to have damage on that particular road, then that would get more. If it's an alternative route or a critical route, it would get more attention than the other route.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, it's just in the recovery space, I suppose it starts to make sense. But if you then use that same example of that connector between Mangakuri and Clearanch, if we don't apply at least some level of resilience lens to the maintenance work we do, when we really need it, it's not going to be in a state when we don't know it's going to be really needed for it to be useful. So that's kind of got to come into both parts, both the BAU and the emergency recovery.
Yeah, through you, Madam Chair, I think that's a really good point. It's something that team have been talking about as we head into the new contract documents next year. I believe that we should be providing more direction on the work that actually gets done from a more strategic perspective to ensure that the dollars we're investing in the network are being targeted to the areas that are super important, that rather than just being reactive to everything, it's just taking a more strategic approach to that investment.
The two, the The hierarchy and the prioritization that we haven't got to yet, they're not one and another, they actually operate together in our services.
That's right, Chair. So they're both foundational pieces of, I guess, tools that we use to maintain the network and decide how the money gets distributed in a way that can, all roads are not kind of born equal. Because there are different roads with different volumes and different needs. So we need to make sure that we're putting the right level of attention and dollars to to those roads with higher volumes on, particularly higher volumes.
So in the circumstance of a community being aware that something's not happening in a particular area, that would be covered under that prioritization that we haven't got to yet.
Yeah, correct. I would like to add as well that I don't think there's any framework that is perfect. And so there's always the opportunity for what I call a manual override. So, if the community is needing or elected members are requiring service on a particular road, then we would always try and address that within financial constraints. We don't ignore it. We always address those requests from the community.
Sorry, just one other thing on the orange roads, the low access roads. The other thing that stands out to me is one of our communities that's challenged by resilience and connection is Elsthorpe. And they're actually boundaried by low volume. It's really interesting to see from the river, from the Patangata Bridge, it becomes low volume up the hill. And then it becomes a blue road, which is more volume. As it heads down into there. But then so they've got that orange low access coming up Elsthorpe Hill. They've also got the orange low access on the Clearance Road connection, which means apart from Hastings, they're surrounded by those low volume ones, which presents us a resilience challenge for how we get the appropriate investment into those roads. So just, yeah. And I know that the other things will come up around like that Elsthorpe Road Hill. Had quite a bit spent on it because it moves all the time. So it doesn't always play out, but those are the kinds of challenges that this will present for us potentially as well.
Just before you answer that, can I just, is it possible for, if we have, more detailed concerns about any of the actual specific roads or colours or hierarchy, what is the process for us to pass on those concerns and can they be acted upon?
Yeah, you can raise that with the land transport team. And I see the road hierarchy document as being, it could be a live tool, right? There's some good issues being raised here around resilience, and considering what we've been through in the last few years with Gabrielle, I do wonder whether we need to kind of change the way that we think about our network in terms of how resilient it is, and not just look at it in terms of black and white numbers, how many vehicles are traveling on this road. I'm thinking, perhaps over the next couple of years that we take more of a strategic perspective on our network and make sure that we've got that right top-down view on it from a resilience perspective.
That can't be right, that low access for Patangata, not Elsthorpe Hill, it's Patangata Hill.
Oh, whatever it is, yeah.
That has to be higher than that because that's the main access way in and out of Elsthorpe.
Yeah.
It can't be orange. And I see the reason why Clearance has got that orange bit on it, because everyone from Mangakuri north drift out through Elsthorpe and everyone from Waipiri drift out through Omakri. So that spot of road between the two is used very little. So that's why it's orange.
So just, I'd just like to reiterate that we do have the opportunity to pass those concerns on to the land transport team, and I think that's the forum for us to do it. If elected members could pass on those directly to Mr. Kinvig, and he can pass them on to the land transport team, because I picked up a couple myself where we go in and out of the local government boundaries, like Tiuri Road, for example, is Tararua CHB. So I had questions regarding that. So I think that's something that we can feed our feedback back to you, as long as it is a living document. We're not I'll phrase it as a question. So if there's a living document, are we able to change this as we need to on the way through? The answer is
yes, that's right. I think we should keep this as a living document, particularly considering what we've been through over the last couple of years and the learnings that we need to collate from that thinking.
Again, probably just Madam Chair, probably other, we started touching on it before, but really that, I don't think that's the right word, but certainly the aspiration of this table are around what community expectation is as well. I know we've still got more work to do on that, but being able to understand how we bridge some of that gap in the longer term. But also recognising that there will always be a tension between criteria, the funding criteria that we've provided by our major funders, NZTA, versus community aspiration. But as a minimum, at least we can start to explain some rationale for why we are investing in the way that we are investing here and here. So certainly noting that's part of that ongoing next steps, maturity in this space as well for us to continue to grow.
I think the growth of this is that a very prime example was being brought up by Councillor Muggeridge in a worship this morning
Agreed.
about
Yeah.
why one particular road is a particular way. So we'll follow that up. Are there any further questions? Somebody like to move that the Transport Committee notes the road hierarchy based on the One Network road classification? Councillor Muggeridge, do I have a seconder? Mayor Annan, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Great. Onto the prioritisation report, which is still Mr. Cundy.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Again, take this paper as read. So the purpose of this paper is to give elected members visibility over the prioritisation approach, which is the tactical way that we prioritise dollars across the network. So sits side by side with the road hierarchy, but this is kind of more at the doing end. You'll note from the paper that there is a maintenance and operations approach to prioritisation, which is very different to the recovery and resilience work that is needed to be done over the past couple of years. So the way we prioritise is set out in the paper against those two areas. They're subtly different, and hopefully that the paper explains that. What we're looking for today is seeking endorsement on this prioritisation approach. It's been used to date. It's been used for this year's program, maintenance operations program, renewals program, and it's also been used for the recovery work as well. Again, I'd like to say that no prioritisation approach is perfect. It's not a black and white. It's not follow the dots to get the answer. It's very often it comes down to unprofessional judgment, but it provides a framework to provide provides visibility to elected members on how we tactically prioritise work. Dawn, is there anything that you wanted to add? No. Questions? Thank you.
Any questions? Lana?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just one quick one. I was just looking at the criteria proposed to be used by council. My question was, when you're assessing the prioritisation criteria, do you also consider economic and population growth factors due to expected developmental expansion areas? We can do this, that part of it.
Through you, Madam Chair. The average annual daily traffic and percentage of heavy vehicles will reflect any growth. And we do yearly traffic counts, some of them in a standard area, because we've seen the growth in tandem with our planning and resource team. We know there's a subdivision, we get a traffic count now. And then when that comes online, we get another traffic count so that we can keep track and then adjust our prioritization or that road in relation to these criteria.
That was going to be my other question. Traffic count, but it's.
Yeah. Yes, we do 172 traffic counts annually, I think. Yeah. And they're all updated through this and the previous paper as well. The road may switch from an access road into a secondary collector because of the traffic volumes have grown.
Yeah.
That would then be reflected in the previous paper and as well as this.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I go to my own question before I go to, because it relates to that. In the harvesting of forestry, for example, where you have targeted heavy vehicle use of a particular road for a particular period of time, how does that reflect in that?
Through you, Madam Chair, those are usually short hauls or short terms. So we tend to manage our maintenance and any renewals around that. For the Brongo Wimbledon, where we have a major supplier that will be there for 30 to 50 years, then that's updated and that stays or goes into the system. The short ones, when we know that somebody's going to log on section of road, we'll back off on the maintenance. We will not do the renewals, and we work with the logging industry to make sure that when they're out of there, they're not coming back for 20 years. Then we'll move the maintenance and renewals in so it doesn't get destroyed and it's not a waste of money.
Just on the bullet points of the criteria, the first one's average annual daily traffic, second one percentage of heavy commercial vehicles. Are those two used to create the ONRC that we had, the criteria that we had in the previous paper?
For you, Madam Chair, yes.
Any others on that list? No, so just those first two. Okay, so it pretty much means that the rest of those bullet points, safety, whole of life cost, condition, capacity, customer impact, are for sorting out whether you do this orange road or whether you do that orange road. It's not necessarily to trade off between the blue roads and the orange roads. It's to trade off within an ONRC class.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, through you, Chair, just to add to that, just that whole of life cost as well, that very often that comes down to the actual solution that we choose to renew the road. So there are lots of ways, you can rehabilitate or you can chip seal depending on what's going on with the pavement. So it's making sure that we're all forward to choosing the right solution that represents best value for the community.
I sort of continue to see some challenges about how we ensure that community connection and priority thing to be sorted in there. And if I just think of that example that we just raised before about the orange bits on both ends of Ellsthorpe, is that if you go, this criteria is going to hold an emergency, decide between those two, and it might be that you do both. But how does that go when we're trying to compare it to the blue road that goes to Porongaho or the blue road that goes somewhere else? So there is a bit in here which is how do we ensure that customer impact bit is kind of the last dot, but actually in terms of our levels of service of providing connectivity to our communities, actually that's almost the first one. So I don't know the answer to this, but I just want to make sure we're live to that challenge when you use the baseline of the colours first and then you use this to make sure we can actually prioritise in the right way.
If I can respond, Madam Chair, as I kind of shared before, there's a lot of professional judgment in here. It's not just kind of look at that hierarchy, then look at the prioritization approach, and then that gives you the perfect answer. That there's obviously broader network knowledge that comes into it, but also just because the community customer impact is the last dot, by no means is it the least important, because very often we are responding to community needs in a reactive way and a proactive way through annual plans and long-term plans. But the resilience aspect, as I said before in the previous paper, I think we do need to put a more strategic approach to how we're investing with that resilience and preventative, what I call, I guess, more preventative maintenance from a resilience perspective going forward.
I also wonder whether that might help us supporting you guys to have the right evidence and the right criteria to back us up as we go through our negotiations with the NZTA around where we get the funding. If we can help that be if we can help that be clear, it gives you guys the backing to do the best for us that we can in that environment. So that's fine. In the right conversation.
Just to add, Madam Chair, to that, I think it's important that we provide you with visibility of what we're doing in the renewal space. And so in November, we will be bringing visibility of the roads that we are sealing, why we've chosen those roads, where we're clearing drains, culvert cleaning, all the renewal work and the day-to-day maintenance operations work. We'll be providing you with what we're aiming to achieve by the end of the financial year, how we're going, and a report at the end that describes what we've achieved against what we set back in the year for more visibility.
Agree.
Yeah, just come back to, I think it's Sean can answer this, the average daily traffic. Are we targeting, how often are we targeting roads like the seasonal roads, the coastal roads, getting the count when it's busiest? Are we doing that? Or is it randomly when those counters are?
Madam Chair, we tend to pick the highest volumes. So yes, we would accommodate not winter for the beach communities. We would do when the beach communities are busy.
The same apply to Department of Conservation and tramping type use of the roads to the ranges.
And further to that, how do you count the heavy traffic vehicles? And what is the weight when you start calling them heavy traffic?
Through you, Madam Chair, the heavy traffic vehicle is a class that starts at 3,500 kg and goes upward. In some areas, we have estimates because we cannot afford to do a traffic count on every road every year.
Yeah.
So we pick the important ones. We pick where we know there's been development or change. You've got a new solar farm or whatever it may be. So we pick those because we know they're going to reflect an impact on the classification and where we look when we're going to do our work. So.
Thank you.
If there is community concern or concern from this table about changes in roads in terms of heavy vehicle use or for whatever reason, there is that movement, again, living documents for us to say, you know, could you consider a traffic count in this particular area? That movement is there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any other questions? Risha?
Sorry, I'm a chairman's nightmare. I apologise, Madam Chair.
I may accept your apology.
I just want to check. So on page 23 of the report, we've got lifted out the dashboard, Roading Efficiency Group, which talks about the cost of maintenance operations and renewals per length, per kilometre length. And it shows us being close to our peer group mostly, but then it spikes in 2023. And I just want to clarify, my assumption is that is because of all the emergency works we did after the winter of 2022 and then the cyclone 2023 that has prompted that to happen. Is there any other insight into that expense per kilometre that is useful?
Through you, Madam Chair, the land transport manager and I went back and forth on this a lot. There was cost fluctuations, but as well as what you've just included, and then the cost fluctuations of some of our products and work has added up to 10 to 15, even 30% in some instances. What we did find in comparison, this graph with another one on the same report, they're not overly correct. That the header isn't correct.
Right.
It's the same report. In another graph says that same cost, same jump, but it includes emergency response. So there's something wrong with the actual figures. I'll check with Reg and work with them to try to get a more reasonable or more explainable difference between the two. But yes, cost fluctuations, all of the emergency events. Yes.
Okay, good. It would be good to know whether that emergency stuff is included in there, because if it's not, then we've got a problem.
Yeah, the header
But if it is, then it's kind of explains it.
yeah, the header says it isn't.
Yeah.
The other header on the next graph or the other graph that's the same says it is at exactly the same cost. So I'll do clarification on that.
Madam Chair, just to add to that conversation, I think these kinds of graphs and data that is in the Reg Insights report, I think are a good way of us measuring value for money. As long as we know what's kind of in the data, but going forward, comparing ourselves with similar councils with similar networks, I think gives us a really good indication about whether we're in the right ballpark around what we're delivering, what level of service we're getting, how much money we're spending to achieve that level of service.
I assumed when I looked at that $1,000 per kilometre one that their peer councils were not those involved with the cyclone. I think so. Any further questions? Would somebody like to move that the Transport Committee endorse the criteria for the prioritisation of all land transport network activities? Councillor Greer, do we have a seconder? Councillor Minahan, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Thanks. Carries. Cyclone Gabrielle. Roading recovery update, page 24. It's England.
Good morning, Madam Chair, councillors, everyone. The report that you've got in front of you today is the monthly update on our cyclone recovery program. I'd like to point out just a few highlights throughout the report to start with. There has been significant progress on our emergency response program to date. We're closing the construction work out now and coming to the end of that phase of our program. We've also made significant progress on our recovery phase 1 work. That's the funded from CIP $11 million. We've started construction on Fletcher's Crossing and are making progress on design for our other sites there. We are also have been quite busy in the last month working with NZTA to better understand funding for this financial year to support our recovery program. We are expecting to have clarification from NZTA on the funding assistance rate for this work tomorrow. And from that point onwards, we'll be able to commence delivery of that recovery phase 2 program of work, which currently has a deadline of the end of June 2025. I'd like to just note that on page 25 of the report here in the table, which outlines the funding to date, there is a minor error in the second column, which notes the funding agency. The recovery phase 1 should be noted as Crown Infrastructure Partners, CIP, and the resilience phase 1 works should be noted as NZTA, so they're reversed there. The resilience phase 1 work is not yet confirmed that council will continue with delivery of that. We've received confirmation from NZTA that the funding is there and approved for us to use on certain sites. However, there needs to be a discussion around council contribution to that funding and whether the sites identified and approved within that bucket of money are a priority for council this financial year or the next, which is when it can be utilised. I'm happy to take the report as read and will answer any questions if there are any.
Questions from Ms. England, Councillor Minahan.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just reading through the report and I see that the emergency response funded works report, there could be potentially 180,000 under budget. Very good on your behalf, but could the potential underspend be shifted to be used for other projects? There could be an overspend due to other project site complexities like Fletcher Crossing or Wilton Road, P9.5.
Through you, Chair, that is a very good question. At this point in time, we haven't decided where the allocation of that underspend will go. The funding expires at the end of December this year, and we're working with our land transport manager at the moment to decide what the priority is for that funding to be assigned to. It could be that it's utilised to support the recovery phase 1 program, like Fletcher's Crossing or Wimbledon Road, yes.
Just if I can just add something, Madam Chair, kind of related to previous conversations around resilience. In our work with NZTA, we are taking more of a top-down view on the network. And so it kind of makes sense what we're doing first and what we're doing later. So that is a bit of a change. We found that NZTA were probably focusing on the individual sites, and so we're kind of working with them to encourage a more top-down strategic perspective of our network and what we would prioritize first.
Has that been successful? Find out.
We're progressing. Discussions are progressing really well. Yep, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just going to add just probably on that, just next steps for visibility for the table as well. So tomorrow, we've touched on it very briefly. I'm expecting to understand the bespoke FAR application from the board. The aim is for the council, sorry, transport committee chair, but for the council meeting on the 31st is to bring a paper back on having confirmed what the bespoke FAR will be tomorrow, what the potential road. So just noting that will be part of that paper, and then a secondary paper, hopefully, where we will have hopefully balance of program, certified program will be as well. 31st being the next kind of milestone for community governance.
Just to confirm that FAR rate that we're expecting to hear about tomorrow, that is the to be confirmed on page 25, recovery phase 2. Councillor Margaret.
So if they come out with a FAR rate of 80%, what's our cunning plan then? Have we got one?
Would you like me to take that?
We will just prioritize. We need a conversation on the local share with elected members through you, Chair. But we will need to cut our cloth with the money that we've got. So we will prioritize, but we'll provide full visibility to elected members on that prioritization.
And next question, are there projects tagged for that recovery phase 2 at the moment you've got?
Again, through you, Madam Chair, that will be part of the program. So again, on the 31st, depending on where the FAR lands, obviously if it's an 80% FAR that we've received, we won't be delivering 11.45 billion. But that will be part of the 2 papers that you see on the 31st, depending on what the outcome of the FAR decision is.
Which is also resilience phase 1 with a 79.5% FAR rate.
Through you, Chair, our intention is to try and include that decision in the same paper so that we can look at it from a transport perspective rather than resilience and recovery.
Any other questions? Thank you.
No, that's fine.
Oh, sorry.
No, that's right.
Thank you.
No, okay. That's right.
Oh, thank you. Any comments on the report? Someone like to, sorry, Your Worship?
I just massive. There's just so much work in this. And to think that our business is coping with this level, prioritising, negotiating, programming, all that kind of stuff. It is pretty phenomenal. So thank you, team, for the work that you're doing on that. And fingers crossed we get the support from NZTA that backs you up. And yeah, no, just good work.
For that. So the chair's thunder, thank you. Sorry. Would someone like to move that the report be notes the cyclone recovery roading update report? Councillor Margaret, seconded by Mayor Annand. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. That's a long report, isn't it? Okay, page 39, reports from joint committees this September. So we had the Regional Transport Committee minutes, which hopefully echoed the verbal update I gave you at the last Transport Committee meeting. It's just the timing of that. I'd rather tell you when it's fresh in my mind than wait for the minutes, which don't tell a full story, but not necessarily from our point of view. So Are there any questions about those minutes? Councillor Monahan.
Thank you, Chair. I just had one that I was a little bit concerned on. I see in the report that the Ministry of Education is not engaging with affected communities when they're proposing to council school bus services on rural communities. My question is there or not a legal requirement to consult with any affected communities?
According to what we were told at that meeting by the Ministry of Education, no. Their consultation is with the school, who has the funding for or that operates the bus systems there, or the process, and it is up to the schools to do their consultation with the school community. I'm not saying that's right. I'm saying that's what we were told at the meeting. And as far as the RTC has put in a submission or a letter to the Ministry of Education pushing for more consultation, for more talking, because the actual criteria that they are using, the policy that they are quoting, has been in place for 100 years. And that just, it's beyond belief at some stage that they could equate, the stories about our, parents walking in barefoot in the snow or on their horse to catch a bus in the middle of nowhere on, from farms. Well, we might be going back to that yet. Any further questions on the minutes?
Just in regards to just follow on from Councillor Monahan. So do we know how many schools are affected by this potential change or?
The one in particular at the RTC meeting was focused on Te Puhui, which is in Bayview, Clive, which have had their the Ministry of Education has looked at the eligibility of students using those services. And the policy which I spoke is the one that they have to go to the nearest school, state or integrated school. So for us, what I believe Waipawa is due to have the same scrutiny, or buses that travel from Waipawa North is due to come under the same scrutiny, and it's a very weird situation where they may be able to travel on that bus if they go to a special education school such as St John's or Sinai. Or Hastings Christian, I think, one of those ones. Whereas Central Hawke's Bay College would be the closest, so they would not be eligible for Hastings boys, Hastings girls, for example. Our ratepayers who are on those buses, or their children on those buses from likes of Te Hauki, they would be looking at, I did a little Google Maps search to find out what, the kilometres, and, likes of Flaxmere College or Havelock North, as opposed to a Hastings boys would be all right, but not Hastings girls, depending on that 100-year-old policy that says they must go to the nearest school. So it was, I'm talking that not from discussions with the Ministry of Education, but from my own Googling and thinking and looking at the policy from that meeting. I'll just throw to her worship if she's thinks any differently from that. So we have yet to fight that or have that come within this council's walls. But I think if people are using those services from Waipawa, they need to contact their schools, going back to Councillor Monahan's earlier question, and get their schools to push on their behalf, because the ministry won't be consulting with them. The ministry will only be consulting with the school.
So until they, if they do that, we stand as a schools and then from our interest, or we just sort of hold.
I may just throw that to her.
I don't think there's anything we need to do at the moment. I don't think there's not live instances happening at the moment, apart from that one that we know of, which is potentially that secondary school bus between Waipawa and Hastings.
Parts of most mornings.
Yeah. For the other ones, from our rural areas this way, I don't think that criteria would affect them because Central Hawke's Bay College is the closest, and those who are using those other schools are often boarding. Yeah, I think it would be to stay in touch with any parents that you know of and just tell them to be aware of it and to do that through their school.
Madam Chair.
And it's weighing up benefit of choice, they're having the choice of where to go, and the benefits for Central Hawke's Bay College would be huge. So it's weighing up those, but it's not our call. That's all.
Coming from a kaupapa perspective, because we do not have a wharekura here in Central Hawke's Bay. Our wharekura are in Pamakinui-a-Rua and Hiratonga. So for our graduates that are coming from kura kaupapa Māori or Takapo, they're only looking at is for Hiratonga. So for us, it's like, how do we get under that special school intake? Yeah.
Are
we under that?
Yeah, no,
yeah.
so Hastings Girls, because they have the full immersion, you are, you could.
So it would be the Hiratonga, the kaupapa, that you just mentioned, or the total immersion, or
Yeah. Because it's a special, it's not special.
It's not
Special character.
Special character. Yeah.
yeah. But it's probably like with Councillor Witchman, if you know people, make them aware of what may be coming and just get them to touch base with their school. Yeah, the school that they wish to attend. Any further comments on the minutes? Discuss arriving. I would like to move that the Transport Committee receives the minutes from the Regional Transport Committee held on the 6th of September 2024. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Witchman. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Page 46. Budge, CHBDC's submission on the Te Ahu Turanga Tararua Highway Toll consultation.
Yeah, I'll take the paper as read. Thank you for the councillors that actually participated in the submission. We highlighted many of the issues, particularly we went back to some of that NZTA's own policy to justify some of the arguments that we were suggesting hadn't been followed. And we also, following submitting it to NZTA, we sent it to the Mayor of Tararua to show our support. I'll take any questions.
Any questions for Ms. Bowden? So I had one that what is the process for that submission now? Do they come back to each submitter, or is it a process where they just announce whatever it is they're doing?
I feel that might have been the actual issue there, Chair. Effectively, yeah, they do their own analysis, take it to the board, and then they will make an announcement, and there were no timelines associated with it. It appeared rushed. Website design and putting this out there.
And further to that, so we were in line with Tararua District Council's issues as well.
Yeah, absolutely. But they went probably a little bit too.
No further questions? Oh, Councillor Minahan?
Is it correct that the Kapiti Expressway between Otac and Wellington is no chuck toll?
Present yet, but that's on the table potentially, as well as the Hawke's Bay Expressway. So, yeah.
So we have an update with the expressway. There's an NZTA Zoom coming up in weeks. It's come up on my calendar, but I can't remember what it is, where they'll be talking about updates. No further questions. Yeah, I liked the sentence. Thank you, Ms. Nudge. The true economic benefits are unlikely to be realised. It doesn't remain free, with 37% continuing to use the alternative routes. The wider safety benefits are unlikely to be realised either. So it's a lose-lose. They're people that are that way often every day. Thank you. Would someone like to move that? We note the submission made to NZTA Waka Kotahi on the Te Ahu Tauranga Manawatu Tarawa Highway Toll Consultation. Councillor Minahan, seconded Deputy Mayor Anand. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. We will now move on the date of the next meeting. That public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of this meeting. Oh, sorry, I did go straight to the next one. That the next meeting of the Transport Committee be held on the 7th of November 2024. Someone like to move? Councillor Burns, seconded. Councillor Witchman. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Thanks. Carried. Public excluded business. Recommendation is that the public be excluded from the following parts of the proceedings of this meeting. The public excluded resolution monitoring reports in a procurement plan for Fletcher's Crossing Stage 1B. Reasons for that are on the agenda there. Would someone like to move that we move into public excluded? Councillor Greer, seconded Councillor Byrne. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Oh, no. So for those watching this, we're just going to go into public excluded and we will close the meeting as part of public excluded. So this is us for now. Thank you.